Guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we're going to be looking at what the Republicans are really looking to get in exchange for raising this debt ceiling, guys. Now, there are only a couple days left for the debt ceiling negotiations between the White House and the congressional Republicans. They took a much more difficult, much harder tone this week, which again, we're going to look at the sticking points that they are looking could be potentially catastrophic, guys, if the U.S. does default on the debt. Which could mean a very heavy recession, could mean a lot of people with job loss. It is very imperative to continue the debt indefinitely, kind of, because at this point, I don't know any point that we're literally just going to hit a hard cap, or at a point where people will quit, or countries in this nature will quit buying government bonds from us to allow us to essentially fund what we're doing within the United States. Now, Republicans hold a very narrow majority in the House, while the Democrats hold on to the Senate. Negotiations need to cater to a bill that both chambers will pass, which is exactly what we're doing. So let's take a look at what they really want to, that are some of the easier things are, one, the energy and mining, the reform, the permitting reform. The proposal is arguably the easiest one to negotiate. Now, this is making it generally easier to launch new products that are energy intensive, such as wind farms, gas pipelines. In the United States, not exactly sure what this is going to look like, but Republicans want fossil fuels while many Democrats want renewable energy. So again, that is a little bit of a split, but it's going to be something that is much easier to go ahead and swallow depending on which side and how much each side does give in. Second part is rescinding the unused COVID money. Now, this kind of is a no-brainer. Between 2020 and 2022, Congress set aside or approximated, and it's hard to say, $4.6 trillion to help the U.S. during COVID. That is right, guys. Almost $5 trillion of a $31 trillion national debt was set aside to help the U.S. during COVID. Now, the budget estimated there's about $30 billion of that money just out there that they could actually bring back, that they could recall. Now, they've agreed on this one. This one, again, it's kind of a no-brainer when you think about it. If there's $30 billion in a fund, COVID, according to the government, has officially ended. So that means that this money is just sitting out there waiting for someone to claim it or take it back, which the government is doing. Now we get into the trickier ones, guys, the ones that are a little more difficult. New work requirements for Medicare. So if you are an individual who is on Medicare, this is really one of the big sticking points that they want to. The Republicans' debt limit bill passed by the House in April would require able-bodied adults with no children to work or train for work to stay on Medicare. That is right, guys. If you are deemed by a medical professional that you are an able-bodied adult with no children, you will have to be trained to work within the United States. The federal health care insurance for low-income people, the White House has consistently rejected the proposal. I'm not going to accept any work requirements that is going to impact the medical needs of Americans. That is what Biden has said. Again, this is the sticking point, is the Republican side wants people to work if they are able to work, and the White House says absolutely not. We're not going to put work in front of the medical needs of individuals. Now, the second one is the changes to current work requirements for food stamps. Again, really big thing. Unlike the Medicaid demands, it appears there could be some room for compromise. Now, this is looking at the SNAP program, the Supplement Nutritional Assistance Program, raising the work retirement age for people enrolled in this program from 50 to 55. So essentially, what we have been doing in the United States is pushing out the age of people that are living. So as we continue to live longer due to medical advancement technologies, we are seeing the average age of Social Security going up. We are seeing, programs like the SNAP program, they want to raise from 50 to 55 years of age to actually qualify for it. They continue to raise the point of retirement for Americans to, again, kind of supplement what they're doing with debt. If the debt was in check, if we didn't have the debt that we do have today, it would be a whole different story. They wouldn't actually have to keep pushing out retirement, pushing out Social Security benefits, things of that nature. because we would have enough money essentially to fund those programs on our own. And the final one they look at, guys, is the federal budget baseline number in 2024 is lower than 2023. That is right, guys. If you're looking and you know anything about finances, the way to really move in the right direction is your next year budget can't be higher than this year's budget, because essentially in 2024, we're going to be right back into the same discussions with the debt ceiling because the federal budget is not balanced by any means, guys. That is why we have $31 trillion in debt as we sit today. Now, as we know, guys, the debt, it's really the argument of McCarthy, and I love this because he breaks it down into just common sense terms. He argues if you go over the limit on personal credit cards, then by extension of America, you need to spend less in the upcoming years than what you've spent in the previous years. Now, this is really hitting home for a lot of different people and really keeping it in check. You cannot borrow additional money on credit cards, whether it's loans, whether it's new cars, houses, whatever it may be. There is going to be a point, if you consider with excessive spending, that you're going to hit a wall where you can't borrow any more money. And unfortunately, there might be a point in time, maybe not in my lifetime, that we do hit that wall with the national debt, that essentially we will not be able to pay or repay, depending on what the interest rates are on the debt that we do have. Now, they've also looked at exempting the military spending, so really taking back some of the money from there. That is kind of a issue, again, kind of on another side with Homeland Security, public health, air traffic controller, maybe doing something, rolling back or cutting expenses across the board. But there are a couple different demands, and we're going to leave on this note, guys. There is a representative from Texas, which I think is kind of crazy to think. So a conservative Republican, Chip Roy, if you've ever heard of him, he is out of Texas. Roy's list of demands contains only 4 items, and I love that they put this in here, guys. Number 1, repeal the electric vehicle tax credit at the center of Biden's Renewable Energy Act. Now this, with us moving to more of an electrical vehicle, electric car, essentially state where 2025, a majority of the big 3 automakers only have electric vehicles in their inventory, which means pulling back the tax credits is going to lessen the incentive for people to actually buy the electric cars right before we roll out all of the electric cars, which again really doesn't make sense. Number 2 is repeal the $80 billion in IRS service funding. So we know there has been a big cash infusion into the IRS to hire additional officers, auditors, things of that nature. They want to pull the money back, or again, Roy wants to. I think he's on a kind of his own crusade here. Number 3 is overturning Biden's executive order to forgive student loan debt, which again, I feel like student loan debt is one of the absolute biggest crippling things in America. When you look at the younger generation, let's say 20 to 40, the student loan debt is just astronomical. It is so putting people so far behind in even the ability to pay their bills, guys. It is kind of crazy. And then the final one he's looking at is reenacting the REINS Act that would require regulatory agencies such as the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, and the EPA to get congressional approval before they could offer any major rules or rulings, which again is kind of interesting. He is calling for all Republicans to kind of hold the line, is what he has said, guys. But overall, we only have a couple more days for the debt ceiling, so we're going to have to see exactly where it does come out, how it shakes out, exactly what it's going to look like. So guys, that'll do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and as always, thank you guys for watching.